What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect, Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here? We're repping America, the center, common sense, and keeping love in your heart. Man, this is my second to last episode of filming like this. Not sure what the future holds exactly. I know there's a podcast in it, and, I just want to thank anybody who's ever watched this. I'm not trying to sway people to right or left. What I'm trying to do is I'm swaying everybody to the middle. Like I say, I rep the center. Some people think that's kind of like, oh, it's egotistical. Oh, yeah, you're the center. But which way do you vote? At the end of the day, I try to vote for the person who I think is going to have the best plan or who has the best track record. That's the way I look at it. Right now, we have Trump. I voted for him. I wish he would do things a little bit differently. But so far, I'm pretty happy, And if you're feeling happy, this dual-wield confetti cannons are for you. I'm going to have to clean that up later. All right, so we're going to kick the show off with a little Babylon Bee here. Elizabeth Warren yelling at a crowd. Democrats furious Republicans trying to control government just because they won election. The reason I brought this one up is I don't really, I see it a little bit, but I think for the most part, a lot of the Democrats realized that where they had headed in the last 4 years was just cuckoo. Biden was not fit to lead, and I think control was turned over to a bunch of college-aged liberals who really did not have the experiences in life to see the disasters that they were bringing to America, especially with the lax border, those parole schemes they had that were quickly abused by people all around the world. We brought in somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 million people, and we were already struggling to take care of the people that were here. It was a bad plan. We'll get more into it as we go through this today, but I think a lot of them are silent right now because they know that we are on a better track. Okay, it might be bumpy, but every road is bumpy. And as we've seen over the last several years, we're not going to find a perfect person to be president. There's going to be issues with all of our presidents. It's just going to be that way. Even if you like a guy, even if you vote for a guy. I voted for Trump, but I know there's things about him that are wrong. I know that there's things wrong about the Republican Party, but maybe one of them turns purple. Maybe one of them just dies off altogether. Anyhow. So, another Babylon Bee here. Disaster as Kanye West X account hacked by Kanye West. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl ad. He was filming himself on, I believe, an iPhone in a dentist chair. And he was talking about his website, Yeezy.com. When it finally went online, believe it or not, the only thing that website did was try to sell a white t-shirt with a black swastika on it. I don't know what the hell he's thinking. But my heart goes out to him because I know he's struggling with mental issues. And I don't say that jokingly. I say that completely seriously. Something's wrong in his head. I don't know if it's, unrewarded narcissism. But, wow. And then apparently there's divorce rumors with his wife, okay? That's pretty typical for celebrities. But, trying to sell a swastika shirt. Well, that guy's, he needs to get some help, man. Anyhow. We were just talking about the Democrats were led down a path that maybe they didn't want to go down. And one of the strategies for the far left is the idea of endless revolution. Always finding something for the college kids to protest. But keep in mind, these are the same college kids who burned down towns in the name of George Floyd, who did not deserve to be admired the way he was. And they also attack Jewish students at these college campuses simply because Hamas attacked Israel and Israel retaliated. That's the kind of craziness that they've been sowing for the last 4 years. They craft these young people, especially college kids, to feel like they and they alone can save the world. I saw a clip today where they were talking about, you don't have a job, and so you go out and glue yourself to the tarmac, and you block the traffic so that people who are trying to get to their jobs, ordinary people, can't go about their day because you think you're superior. It makes you feel superior. You can post it on X. You can post it on Instagram and on YouTube. Oh, look at me. I'm trying to save the world. I'm trying to end oil. But it's naive. And that's what they feed on. And for 4 years, we were forced to run with this naive plan of theirs. I don't really see that anything that during Biden's term really worked out. I think he went about everything the wrong way. I think his puppet masters went about everything the wrong way. And sure, they sowed chaos, and now Trump, RFK, Elon Musk, they're sowing chaos. But I think there's a big difference. For 4 years, we saw the border, trans athletes, and DEI sow chaos that we knew would end badly. And just possibly Trump's chaos might actually work. The border, opening the border, was just rife with fraud, rife with criminals coming across, drug traffickers, human traffickers. The trans athlete thing was just mind-boggling, how obvious it was at times. The basketball player who injured 3 girls but was sporting a beard, claiming to be a woman. And the DEI, which we're going to get into a little bit more towards the end of the show, but, forcing workers into DEI meetings where you berate the white people and tell the white people, oh, you're evil and you need to own up to white crimes and blah, blah, blah. How is that ever going to end well? The division in this country. And Joe Biden promised unity. We were promised that Joe Biden was a moderate, and none of that happened. So, I think before you all go, screaming with your hair on fire about Trump, I think you might want to just look at the fact that, his chaos is actually directed at something that might work. Like, for example, take a look at Gaza. Trump goes off and says, we're going to take the Gaza Strip and we're going to make it a money-making paradise. And Gazans might not be able to come back. And everybody goes, oh my God, he's going to send U.S. troops into Gaza. No, he wasn't. That's a negotiating tactic. You go extreme and see what your opposition, I guess, comes back with. And what they came back with is Egypt is now putting together a coalition of Arab nations to rebuild Gaza for the Gazans. Genius. Genius. I don't know what his 4D chess move with Greenland and Panama and Canada are. I don't know where he's going with these tariffs. I get it. We could all overreact and panic, or we could sit back and see what happens, because somebody needs to stand up and say the things that need to be said. And right now it's Trump and his crew. I mean, even the most ardent Trump haters out there have to admit that he is saying things that are true, that need to be done. Maybe he's going about it in a way that you disagree with, but what was the alternative? The way Biden went about things was contextualizing, spinning, reminding everybody, oh, yeah, it was Hamas, but, Israel aggression, and we have to see both sides, and blah, 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 blah. No, what Hamas did was wrong. They need to be completely removed from the face of the planet. And unfortunately, innocent people are going to get caught up in the middle. But Israel didn't start this fight. The America didn't start this fight. Keep in mind, a very simple axiom out there. If Hamas lays down their weapons, the war's over. If Israel lays down their weapons, Israel's over. One of my problems that I have with religion as a whole is you allow people, men, women, whatever, to add their spin to this religious text. And what we've seen, since the 70s is that when the extreme Muslims, or even slightly less extreme Muslims, take power in a country, things change. Human rights go away, gay rights go away, women's rights go away. We've seen it. We saw it in Iran. We saw it in, just across the Middle East. And the worst part is for whatever reason, the left sort of just bows down to them and says, we're on your side. Just do what you're going to do. And they back them. Like in the UK, they recently arrested a man for burning a Quran. But not only did they arrest him, they released his name and address. And more than likely, he will be tracked down and killed. That happened to another guy, I believe it was in Sweden, who was arrested for burning a Quran some time ago. And he eventually was killed. You know, when was the last time you heard of somebody being killed or even arrested for burning a Bible? I mean, that's the big difference right there. Yes, you have small sections of radicalized religion across the board. You know, in some cases we call them orthodox, and that's fine. That's fine if you want to be really strict and blah blah about your religion. That's cool and everything. But the level that we've seen, followers of the Muslim religion go to, it's a bit frightening. I get it. I mean, I understand why people don't like Christians, for example, for their treatments of gays. But those same people who come from the left, I want to know, how is Islam better? It's not. I don't understand why the left protects them. I don't understand why weak lefty politicians allow them to get away with what they get away with. We saw it here in Michigan where they removed all the pride flags. That's stupid. But you're going to support them, and then you're going to turn around and get on Hexag and Trump for wanting to remove Pride Month. Both sides are wrong. Both of those sides are wrong. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I heard something recently. I forgot the guy's name, but he's dead now. He died at the age of 98. He was one of the top Muslim advisors, judges, clerics, whatever it is. He wrote a book. And in his book, he literally wrote out the plan. He told his followers, take advantage of the lax immigration in the U.S. and Europe. Move into enclaves with other Muslims. Don't assimilate. And when the population reaches 5% or more, demand liberty. Demand to be allowed to rule under Sharia law in certain circumstances. In Britain alone right now, in the UK, there's something like 100 Sharia courts where things are settled under Sharia law, which is laws based on the Quran, which is no different than laws based on the Bible. We don't really like that because although you could take some good ideas out of the Quran and the Bible, there's also some really bad ideas in there. But after you've gotten these liberties and you've set up the Sharia courts, grow that population until you take over. And then deny liberty. His plan is literally to use liberty against us to the point where they can then turn around and take away liberties. That's who we're dealing with. And it's no different for the lefties. Marx, Lenin, other commies. They've written down their plan. They've put it down on paper. Everybody's all afraid about, what was that, Project 2025. But meanwhile, they're ignoring that their own people have written their plans down. We're not worried about boogeymen. We're worried about scripted plans. These are not Republican talking points. These are not purple state talking points. This is what they believe in. This is what they want. Marx was all about, stripping away the family, stripping away religion. And what have we seen in our own country, the great United States of America? As we moved away from family, religion, schools, listening to older people's advice, things like that. What has happened to our kids? We live in an extremely depressed society right now. I leave that right on the doorstep of social media because I think that really has accentuated it and given it momentum. But, the left wing, the legacy media likes to play off some of our fears as boogeymen. And these are scripted plans. It's written down what they intend to do. What are we supposed to do? We have to fight back in all ways possible. We just have to. We have to see things for what they really are. And that's one of the things that I admire so far about the Trump administration, is they're seeing things for what they are. This is from a climatologist, Judith Curry. She has a PhD. It's from the Atlas Society. We've already warmed since pre-industrial times by 1.2 degrees centigrade, which is the boogie number for the climate change people. Over that period, humans have thrived. Population has increased by 5 times. Agricultural productivity is way up. So overall, things are much better than they were even 100 years ago. All right, just reminding us, that all of this hysteria is not necessarily valid, okay? Sure, we need to cut down on pollution, but how much can we control our Earth? You've heard me say it here before. I believe that one of the reasons why we're seeing changing weather patterns is because of wobbles in the Earth's orbit. We've seen it in time and time again throughout history. I'll say it again. LA was not a desert. It was a grassland. We had mastodons. We had saber-toothed tigers. The Sahara Desert was once grasslands and supported large dinosaurs. But anyhow, on the other side, we're going hell-bent on ending all fossil fuels, and we're turning to electricity. And when you collect the sun during the day, you have to store it through the night in batteries. And that's what this story is about. Residents say they witnessed anomalies ahead of California's lithium battery fire. Locals near Vistra Energy's Moss Landing power plant noticed anomalies in the days leading up to last month's lithium-ion battery fire at the facility, including dead sea lions with skin lesions, sounds of explosions, chemical smells, and symptoms like burning eyes and throats. Those issues could mean there were problems at Moss Landing even before the blaze broke out. This comes from consumer advocate and environmental activist Erin Brockovich. She has a long career exposing environmental catastrophes, environmental hazards, and violations. And the event demonstrated how even as Newsom looks to ditch fossil fuels, he is making enemies in the environmentalist movement. Yeah. Because local residents, after that fire, have been complaining of health issues. The January 16th fire at Moss Landing sent up thick black smoke and a sharp chemical smell throughout Monterey County. Beautiful part of California. And the symptoms are consistent with exposure to hydrogen fluoride, a compound that can be lethal at high levels. And soil samples have also been found that show that the flames spewed out heavy metals, with at least one test site accumulating dangerous concentrations. Lithium batteries are needed to store energy from renewable sources, and regulators predict that the state will need about 52 gigawatts of battery storage to meet that target, nearly 4 times the 13.3 it has today. And Moss Landing has already had a couple of fires since 2021. It's only been around for roughly 4 years, and it's had, I believe, 3 fires. This is dangerous stuff. Meanwhile, we haven't had any problems with nuclear power plants. See, that's the difference between them and me. All right? If we want to get off fossil fuels, I think it's nuclear. I think we can mix in solar. I do not like wind power. Wind power is costly and very detrimental to the environment. I don't think that with all of the stuff that goes into building and maintaining windmills and just the gross look of them, I don't think it ever pays off, okay? But that's just me. Environmental activists have largely embraced battery-dependent green technology. In this case, however, Brockovich is squaring up against the Gavin Newsom administration, arguing that the Moss Landing battery facility caused the health of local residents to suffer. So the EPA went out and said, there were no air quality threats. But, they turned it over to monitoring operations from the people who own the place, Vistra. But Monterey's own air quality agency, meanwhile, said that Monterey County's own air quality agency stepped in and said, the only air downgrades were for people using wood-fired stoves. But that's not true. Because once the lawsuit started going, right, they started bringing in other people. And soil tests show that there were heavy metals being deposited throughout this fire. And this one guy, Ula Quixote, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that name. He's an agricultural toxicologist from UC Davis. He suggested there would have been very high concentrations of these contaminants in the air. And one of them is cobalt. High cobalt exposure can cause impaired lungs, asthma, lung disease, breathing difficulties. So we are literally willing to kill the environment in a different way because we don't like the old way. I don't really understand this. There are videos online where they open up lithium batteries and they drop the ribbon of lithium in water and it ignites. That's dangerous stuff. I do warehouses that are packed with these lithium ion batteries, and there's roof leaks. There's been no upgrade in the fire prevention for these things. You know, it's really funny here in California how they pass all of these laws about what you can and can't do. You can't use a plastic straw. You can't have a plastic bag. But then when it comes to warehouses that are just packed with e-scooters and batteries and related technologies and their batteries and all of that, they're not going in and telling people that they need to upgrade their fire system. It's really a bizarre thing to see so many things. And I'll tell you, the one thing about these lithium-ion batteries that scares me and should scare everybody is they don't require any sort of ignition source. They can get cracked and get a little water, and they can start their own fire. Not many other things, when mixed with water, are flammable. I mean, hey, dunk a pack of matches in a cup of water and see if you can light them. I'm just saying, that's my concern. That's what I'm raising. You know, they might label me a climate change denier, but I only see it as the climate is changing because of outside forces outside of our control. We should try to clean things up, but at the same time, going at it in this just chaotic fashion is leading to more and more problems than they're solving. Those e-bikes, those e-scooters are the leading cause of death by fire in New York City. That's really all we need to know. This is not the correct route. I'll move on. So this next article comes from a former Clinton administration employee. He was a comptroller. You know, he's a guy who manages money, looks at trends, things like that. Voters were right about the economy. The data was wrong. This is from Politico. Remember, I took shots at Politico, but if they have an article that's valid, I'm going to read it. I'm going to bring it to you. You know, what stands out about this is that this is a nonpartisan article, okay? Before the presidential election, many Democrats were puzzled by the seeming disconnect between economic reality as reflected in various governmental statistics and the public's perception. And they said that they charged that the right-wing echo chambers were conning voters into believing entirely preposterous narrative about America's decline. What they rarely considered was whether something else might be responsible for the disconnect. Whether, for example, government statistics were fundamentally flawed. And so that's what Eugene set out here to do. He wanted to know. He's been, as he says here, he served as a comptroller of the currency during the 90s. He spent substantial chunks of his career exploring the gaps between public perception and economic reality. And so he went and he formed a team and they started crunching some numbers. And one of the things that really just kind of puts it all into focus is that the filters used to compute the headline statistics were flawed. It's called the U3, and the number misleads in several ways. First, it counts as employed the millions of people who are unwillingly underemployed. That is, people who, for example, work only a few hours each week while searching for a full-time job. Second, it does not take into account many Americans have been so discouraged that they're no longer trying to get a job. Finally, the prevailing statistic does not account for the meagerness of any individual's income. Thus, you could be homeless on the streets, making an intermittent income and functionally incapable of keeping your family fed, and the government would still count you as employed. So they went through and they put some new filters in, right? In other words, like, let's not count these people. So while Biden was touting numbers of 4.2%, right? They were counting homeless people as employed, which I guess you could say technically is correct. But when they got rid of people who were not making enough money to even survive on, the percentage is actually 23.7%. In other words, nearly 1 in every 4 workers is functionally unemployed in America. Hardly something to celebrate. Eugene went on to say, this should not be a partisan issue. Policymakers in both parties would benefit from gleaning a more accurate sense of what's happening at the ground level of the American economy. And that's the thing that was really upsetting about what we had to put up with in the last 4 years under Biden. The fucking gaslighting. All right? I have not seen the Trump administration do that. I have not seen them gaslight anybody. Hey, they might be, wildly over predictive at times, but their craziness is just put right out there. They're bonkers. They know they're throwing around numbers. Trump knows that he wasn't going to land troops in Gaza, but because he threatened it, Egypt has made the move to step in and form a coalition. So it's not gaslighting people into believing that the economy is good when it's bad. Trump's more along the lines of saying, I could save the economy. And what has he done? Prices have not fallen. He hasn't been able to do much with that because there's only so much he can do. But he didn't try to gaslight us. Has he tried to tell us that the price of eggs is going down when they're not? No. But yet, the Biden administration flat out, and its legacy media partners flat out said, Americans just don't see how good the economy is. Well, now we know why. Now we know why that they believe that it was. Babylon B. Democrats vow to fight DOGE by wasting more money than ever. I want to preface this entire bit on saying that I do not believe that one party is more or less responsible for wasting money. I think both sides waste money. I think that's what politicians do. It's not their money. So why are they serious about it? Well, then we have to be serious about it. And if it takes, seriously, it's going to take Elon Musk. Really? Elon Musk, the guy who started PayPal and Tesla and SpaceX, who names his kid some sort of quadratic formula. I'm shocked. Look, I was shocked as hell when Trump was elected over Hillary Clinton. I am more shocked now that Elon Musk is basically a volunteer at the White House. I think it's crazy, but I'll say it again. I think this craziness is going to lead to better days. There's the Democrats reading their Communist Manifesto, the deep state laundry. This is from Bronco. He's got a washing machine, 3 washing machines right there. Climate change hoax, DOD, and USAID. Yeah, USAID was funding, giving money essentially giving money to terrorist groups to be diverse. And the climate change hoax, it is a hoax because the climate is changing. But what they have done is monetize it. What they have done is funneled billions of dollars into pet projects. And I'll say this again. I've said this before. Okay, the older politicians, mostly the Republicans, the conservatives, they invested in oil and steel and things like that a long time ago. Family money, all of that. Okay, a lot of the Democrats come from generally, except for recently, came from a younger set, and they didn't have anything to invest in. So now they can invest in solar and wind, and the politicians can force everybody to use solar and wind, and your profits will go up, and everybody will be rich. Okay, that's why they're doing it. All right, because of their investments. Larry Elder posted this one. I'm not sure if it was his originally. If you didn't flip out when Biden fired federal workers for not getting a vaccine, I really don't care what you think about Trump firing federal workers for not contributing anything. And that's a good example of what I was saying about the craziness and the chaos. See, Biden and other people in his party fired people for not getting the COVID vaccine, right? That's true. That's what happened. But now those very same people are up in arms that Trump's firing federal workers for not contributing anything. USAID and things like that. It has a very worthwhile purpose, but that purpose was perverted into trying to spread left-wing propaganda across the world. And that's not what our tax dollars are supposed to do. Do these idiots even hear themselves? This is a picture of a mob out of The Simpsons. We must stop Elon Musk from exposing government corruption. Well, of course, because if you are part of that corruption, you are going to rally your troops to try to stop this because it's your gravy train. It's got to stop. I mean, first and foremost, we need to stop wasting money at state, local, federal levels. We need to, because every year the cost of keeping the country going is only going to go up. And we've got real problems right here in California, for example. You know, they're spending all of their money on all of these highfalutin green ideas, but we need prisons, we need mental hospitals, schools need supplies and remodeling and things like that. We need reservoirs. We definitely need to do something about the homeless, but right now we're spending upwards of $100,000 per homeless person, and they're still on the streets. How is that compassionate? How is that useful? That's the part that bothers me. When we're giving money to, for example, study non-gender fruit flies in Pakistan, that money could be better served here. And if we pull all that back and then look at that chunk of change, maybe we could start making real differences. I can't believe I forgot to mention the bullet train in California. Talk about government waste and corruption. Because even though they're doing it legally, it's still corrupt. Giving contracts to friends, giving contracts to family-owned businesses. That stuff might be legal, but it's still corrupt. Charlie Kirk had a good one here. I don't always agree with the man, but I like the cut of his jib. Gavin Newsom should be forced to rescind California's $50 million Trump-proof fund and redirect it to help victims of the fire. Yeah, okay. It's disgraceful to grovel for federal money from the man while spending state tax dollars to viciously oppose him. That's what they're doing. I mean, California is trying to craft plans to keep immigration and customs out of California so that all the people who are here illegally can stay. They're fighting for the people who want to sell drugs, the Honduran immigrants in San Francisco that control the fentanyl market. That's who they're trying to protect. They're not trying to protect the average Californian. And the whole idea of, I'm going to Trump-proof California. Who the fuck asked for that? Because the numbers don't really back that up, buddy. All right, so this one came from Babylon B. Bert and Ernie. PBS drops DEI, announced that Bert and Ernie are now straight. I find it kind of funny. It's a good joke. Personally, I always just thought Bert and Ernie were a couple of bachelors. I don't know. They're fucking puppets. What do you want me to make of it, right? But what I want to address through this, okay, is that DEI was kneecapping a lot of programs that I believed in. Rural internet, high-speed internet was one of them. Hiring less qualified people simply because of the color of their skin is pretty fucking stupid. And then lumping every white person into a group and saying that you guys are responsible for slavery. My family wasn't even in this country during slavery. My family didn't even get to this country until the mid-1900s. But I'm supposed to be responsible? Where I grew up in an all-white town. But as you might imagine looking at this outfit, I stood out. I was harassed by the police all the time. I was the weird kid. I was the kid who was usually sectioned off to the side. All right? I didn't have any white privilege that I ever saw. I had privilege somewhat because of the town I grew up in. They were a little more, I guess, lax on us. I don't know. I mean, I certainly didn't feel that way. But I'm not sitting there. I'm not saying this for people to cry about it, okay? What I'm saying is that I've seen the bad side of preconceived notions about people. And I don't like it. And I support the LGBT community. I think they deserve all the rights, and they should just basically be left alone. But I'm still going to be labeled as the white guy who needs to apologize, the straight white male. And I need to apologize for everything. And I need to get in line with that. Men can get pregnant. And I need to get in line with it's better to hire an underqualified person who is diverse than a qualified person who is white. See, that's all a bunch of bullshit, okay? DEI. It's all a bunch of bullshit. All right? It was all a leftist conspiracy to separate us more and to create all these different little pockets that they can then play off of each other. But included in DEI is not Pride Month. All right? Pride Month and DEI have nothing to do with it. All right? Diversity and inclusion are great ideas. But when you put those three initials together, we got very bad results. But that does not mean we need to strip away Pride Month. All right? I understand all of the arguments about Pride Month. Oh, how come we don't have Veterans Month? Okay, fine. Whatever. We need in this country to have spotlights on certain groups where we sort of can spend a little bit of time learning about those cultures and learning to accept those cultures. I think every month should be that way. Where's Hispanic month? How about that? That would be great. That would be awesome. What are their contributions? Stuff about their culture. You're better when you learn about other cultures and other ways of thinking, you become a better person. And that's the thing that I'm seeing right now, the Trump administration, that I like the least. Okay? I'm glad DEI is dead, buried. I hope it stays dead and buried. Buried under 6 feet of dirt and then concrete over it and build a fucking dump on top of it. But don't strip away Pride Month. Let's not regress. We have Republicans and people who are a little right center or even center like myself. We have an opportunity right now to claw back voters from the far left. I don't care if you're a Democrat. All right, that's fine. Democrats could be almost right down the middle. But let's not fuck it all up and say it's all about DEI, because removing Pride Month has nothing to do with DEI. The evil DEI. Oh, sure, you could say it's diversity and inclusion and all that. Oh, okay. You could make that, but it's not DEI. Those three letters are a four-letter word around here. But pride, when we ostracize young people and then wonder why our country seems to be headed down the wrong path, this is why. DEI was a bad idea. Pride is a great idea. I signed my name to that. I'm King Copious. I'm Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another, even if you effing disagree. Because it don't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. When the beat drops, you can both dance it out.